water heaters you'll see in industrial commercial buildings, residential buildings, um, in apartment buildings, in duplexes, in houses. We're not talking about boilers today. This is just specifically tank type water heaters. So again, there's different types of water heaters from left to right. On the far left, that's a tank type gas powered water heater. You can see the gas valve there towards the bottom of the water heater and the flue on the top of the water heater. Next to that, you have an electric water heater, usually 240 volts. Those two rectangular covers that you see, that's where the heating elements are. There's a top heating element and a bottom heating element. In the center, that's a hybrid high efficiency heat pump water heater. And so it uses a heat pump to draw in heat from the ambient air around the outside of the water heater to heat up the water. If it can't find enough heat in the ambient air temperature, then it uses those electric heating elements as sort of a backup to make sure you do have a full amount of hot water. And then you can see the smaller looking water heaters, those are tankless water heaters. We won't be talking about those today. That can be a separate video for the future. But those come in gas and in electric and high efficiency as well as standard efficiency. The high efficiency ones have a little bit different venting to them, but to pull in fresh air from outside. Those ones, the high efficiency ones, also produce some acidic condensation. So that has to be treated properly and collected properly. It has to have a little pump. It has to be neutralized before you can put it down the drain. And then to the far right, that's a point of use water heater. So that's a little guy that would go underneath a sink, or maybe in a office lunchroom underneath the sink, for example. Those can be from a couple gallons to several gallons. So today we're specifically going to be focusing on a gas-powered tank-type water heater. Here you can see some of the basic main components of a gas-powered tank-type water heater. You have a glass-lined steel tank with a layer of insulation between the inner and outer layers. You have a drain valve. You have a gas burner. The gas burner is connected to the gas valve. On that gas valve, there's also a temperature control knob. And you can also see the temperature probe sticking inside of the water heater. Farther up on the right side, you have a pressure relief valve, or sometimes called a PT valve, because it relieves and will open on high pressure or high temperature. And that's an important safety valve, and that's what prevents the water heater from exploding, for example, if it ever got too hot or under too much pressure. Then you have your cold water in. Cold water comes down through what they call a dip tube, and it dumps the water more towards the bottom or middle of the water heater, closer to the burner. And then your hot water pipe going out to feed the building with hot water, and then the flue, of course, going up the center is your hot exhaust gases going out of the building. The sacrificial anode rod, those can be made of different materials like aluminum, for example. Sacrificial anode rods are there to, as their name implies, to sacrifice themselves to protect that glass-lined steel tank from corrosion from the minerals in the water. So the minerals will stick to that anode rod and eat that anode rod before it eats the inside of your water tank. However, once that anode rod becomes completely covered, or after several years completely dissolved, then the minerals in the water will start to eat the inside of your water heater tank. And then eventually you have to replace your water heater, because eventually what will happen is you'll get a pinhole leak, generally towards the bottom of the tank. You'll start leaking water. At that point, the water heater needs to be replaced. So today we're talking about tank type water heaters. This is an A.O. Smith ProLine commercial grade water heater that we're looking at. And this one is gas powered. You can see the gas line here comes in to the control valve. Down underneath here is where your burner is. If you have an electric water heater, there'll be a cover here and a second cover a little bit higher up, and underneath that cover is the heating elements that stick into the water. This is a glass line steel tank inside here, and on a gas water heater, this is the exhaust flue that goes up and out of the building. This line here is your cold water line with your water shut off. So if your water heater ever leaks or you need to perform maintenance on your water heater or replace it, that's where you shut it off. Sometimes, not on this case, there's usually a hot water shutoff valve, but this line unfortunately doesn't have a shutoff valve on the hot water side. On the side here, this is the TP valve. This is a temperature pressure relief valve. This one's rated at 150 psi. And you can read the rating and the model number and a BTU rating, etc. on the data plate. And so if the pressure or temperature ever got too high, this valve would open and relieve the pressure. And in here there's a floor drain. So if this water heater ever failed or leaked, it's a concrete floor with a floor drain, so that helps. This right here is your drain valve. So if you ever need to drain the hot water heater for maintenance or to replace it, that's where you would drain it. Sometimes it'll be a plastic valve. You want to be careful opening and closing those plastic valves because they can break easily. And then back to the top of the hot water heater. One more important thing to mention right here, underneath this cap is I apologize, it's dark in here. There's a sacrificial anode, and basically it looks like a big Allen hex head type pipe plug. And they're hard to unscrew, but basically what that is, that sacrificial anode is a rod that goes all the way down, about 3/4 of the way down inside the water heater. And the sacrificial anode will attract all of the minerals, and if you have hard water, the minerals will attach to that anode and not attack the inside of your glass line water heater. Ideally, every couple of years, if you replace that sacrificial anode, then you'll extend the life of your water heater and protect your water heater. But most folks don't do that. They never get replaced. The sacrificial anode gets eaten up and completely dissolved, especially after 10, 15 years. And then the minerals in the water will then start to corrode the inside of your water heater from the inside out. And then eventually you'll get a pinhole and you'll start seeing water leaking down around the bottom of it. So you can buy replacement sacrificial anodes for your hot water heater, your water heater. What you would want to do is look at the make, model, and serial number right here on the data plate. And you can go on their website or look in the owner's manual and get a part number to replace that sacrificial anode. If you do that, you'd want to shut off the gas or electricity, depending on what power source your water heater uses. And then make sure you turn the water off, and then you're going to want to bleed down the pressure and water. So hook up a hose right here, or if you have a floor drain, let the water go down the floor drain and drain the water level down, bleed the pressure down. Then you can come up here and take that. It looks like a big Allen pipe plug. So you want to make sure you get the proper tool to take that off. They're factory tight, so they're very hard to get off. You might have to put a cheater pipe on the end of your ratchet to get it to break loose. If it's been in there a long time, several years, you might not even get it to be able to break loose. If you look in your owner's manual, it might give you some maintenance tasks like opening the pressure temperature relief valve, let's say once a year for 5 seconds, maybe draining the sediment off. So a good rule of thumb is refer to your manufacturer instructions. And when you do drain the sediment on these, you never really get all of it. What you would do is turn the water off, turn the power off, and you'd open that drain down there, and then you come up here and you would open and close this valve. Open and close this valve a couple times, back and forth. And what that will do is that's going to spray down the dip tube a stream of water to the bottom of the tank and help stir up that sediment, and you'll get more sediment coming out of this drain valve. Again, you won't be able to get all of it, but you'll get a good amount of it. There's different schools of thought. Some plumbers say, nah, you never need to drain the sediment from your water heater. Some plumbers say, yes, you do. Again, my best advice would be to refer to your owner's manual for your water heater or go on their website. Another good thing is your incoming water from the city. If you have that water filtered and then have that water go through a water conditioner like this one or a water softener, then that'll help reduce the amount of corrosion and mineral buildup inside that glass line steel tank, again prolonging the life of your water heater. And then here you can see this is the gas shutoff valve for this unit. You should see that somewhere on yours if you have a gas unit. Also, it gives you lighting instructions here, and it usually tells you, you can see the flashing light. So we look up here, it says one flash, so normal operation, but depending on how many flashes, it tells you what's going on with your water heater. And then this one, of course, is where you would light it if the pilot ever went out. And it gives you lighting instructions on there as well. You also always want to keep everything away from the water heater. You don't want to lean anything up against the water heater. You don't want anything blocking the bottom because it has to suck fresh air in underneath to have proper combustion with the fuel, in this case natural gas. And then up here on top, same thing, you want to keep combustibles away from your exhaust flue. Don't touch that pipe exhaust duct because it's very hot. Anyways, just a little bit of information about these tank type water heaters. There is maintenance items for tankless water heaters or point of use water heaters as well, but that's going to be a different subject for a different video. Thank you. Please like, share, subscribe, ring the bell, leave a comment below for future video topics you'd like me to cover.